Hi guys, welcome back. Tonight I will be reading 5 scary campfire stories. Please consider subscribing if these stories are something you enjoy listening to. It is very much appreciated. Okay, please get comfortable. Close your eyes if you prefer. And relax. The Whistling Thing in Red Mesa. 5 of us drove into the Arizona desert for a weekend camping trip during senior year. We picked a spot miles from civilization near a place locals called Red Mesa. The gas station clerk warned us before we left. Don't stay out there after dark. We laughed about it the whole drive. By midnight we had a fire going, music playing softly from a speaker, and enough junk food to survive a week. The desert felt peaceful, empty. Then we heard whistling, one short whistle. Everyone stopped talking. A second whistle answered from somewhere farther away. Trevor grinned nervously. Coyotes don't whistle, right? Nobody answered. The whistles continued, moving around the camp slowly, circling us through the darkness beyond the firelight. Then something called my name. Daniel. I froze. The voice sounded exactly like my younger sister, but she was back home in Nevada. Marcus stood immediately. Don't answer it. What is it? I whispered. He stared into the dark woods. My grandfather used to talk about skinwalkers. He said if one calls your name, ignore it. The fire suddenly crackled loudly, as if wind had rushed through camp, but the air was completely still. Then we heard footsteps, heavy ones. Something was walking just outside the light. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Trevor grabbed a flashlight and pointed it toward the trees. At first we saw nothing. Then 2 eyes reflected back at us, too high off the ground. The thing stepped forward slowly. It looked like a deer standing upright. Its front legs bent awkwardly like human arms. Patches of fur hung off its body, exposing grey skin underneath. Worst of all was its face. It was smiling, not naturally, like it had learned by copying people. Trevor whispered, "Oh my God." The creature tilted its head. Then in Trevor's exact voice it said, "Help me." Trevor stumbled backward. The thing took another step toward camp. Its joints cracked loudly as it moved. Then it dropped onto all fours and sprinted sideways through the trees, faster than anything I'd ever seen. The whistles started again from every direction. Marcus shouted, "Truck! Now!" We ran for the pickup while branches snapped around us in the darkness. Something moved between the trees alongside us, keeping pace. I jumped into the truck bed just as Marcus slammed the gas. As we sped down the dirt road, lightning flashed in the distance. For 1 second I saw the creature running beside the truck. Its arms were impossibly long, its mouth stretched far too wide, and its eyes never blinked. The next morning we stopped at the the same gas station from before. The old clerk looked at us quietly and asked one question. Did it speak to you? None of us answered, because scratched into the side of Marcus's truck were 5 names, all of ours. The circle beyond the cabin. My cousin rented an old hunting cabin in northern Michigan one October. It sat deep in the woods with no nearby neighbours and barely enough electricity to keep the lights on. The owner gave us one warning before leaving. Stay out of the southern woods. Naturally, that's exactly where we went. Around midnight, me, Connor, and Jess grabbed flashlights and wandered into the trees behind the cabin. At first, everything felt normal. Then we noticed how quiet the woods were. No bugs, no wind, no animals, just silence. After walking for about 15 minutes, Jess suddenly stopped. Do you smell that? It smelled rotten, like wet meat left in the sun. We followed the smell into a clearing and froze. Animal bones hung from the branches with red string tied around them. Dead crows were nailed upside down to trees. Black candles surrounded a large symbol carved into the dirt. At the centre sat a wooden rocking chair, slowly moving back and forth. Connor whispered, "We should leave." Then my flashlight landed on photographs hanging from a branch. Dozens of them. Pictures of people hiking, camping, sleeping, and several of us standing outside the cabin earlier that evening. Someone had been watching us. Jess screamed suddenly. Behind the chair hung the skinned body of a deer, suspended upside down from a tree limb. Symbols were carved across its chest. Then we heard footsteps behind us, slow, crunching through leaves. We turned our flashlights toward the trees. Nothing there, but the footsteps continued, circling us. Then a voice whispered from the darkness, "You shouldn't be here." We ran. Branches snapped behind us the entire way back to the cabin. Whatever followed us never showed itself completely, but we could hear it moving fast between the trees. When we finally slammed the cabin door shut, everyone inside thought we were joking until they saw our faces. Connor locked every window and door. At around 2 a.m, 3 slow knocks echoed from the front porch. Knock, knock, knock. Nobody moved. Then came another 3 knocks. Connor finally peeked through the curtains. He immediately backed away. "What?" I whispered. "There's someone standing out there." "Who?" He swallowed hard. "They're wearing antlers." The figure outside remained completely still. Then a low voice came through the door. "You touched the circle." Jess started crying because we had told nobody about the clearing. The lights flickered violently, then everything went silent. At sunrise, we opened the door carefully. No one was there, but hanging from the porch railing was a fresh photograph taken through the cabin window during the night. It showed all 8 of us inside, and standing behind Connor was the antlered figure. screams outside Black Hollow. I spent one winter working security near a tiny mountain in Montana called Black Hollow. The locals all followed one strange rule. If you hear screaming at night, stay inside. Nobody explained why. The first week passed normally. Then one night around 1 a.m. I heard it. A scream so sharp and horrifying it jolted me awake instantly. Not an animal, not a fox, a human scream. A woman screaming in absolute terror. It echoed through the valley outside my cabin. Help me! I rushed toward the front door, but before I could open it, my landlord from the neighbouring cabin pounded on the wall. Don't go outside! The screaming continued, closer now. It sounded like the woman was running through the snow just beyond the trees. Then suddenly the scream changed. The voice became distorted, too deep, too high, like multiple voices layered together. I peeked through the blinds. Nothing, just falling snow. Then the screaming stopped completely. For a moment, there was silence. Then came scratching. Long nails dragging slowly across the cabin walls. I backed away from the window. The scratching moved around the cabin in circles. Then I saw her. A woman standing at the tree line wearing a white coat. Her hair covered her face. She stood completely motionless. The screaming started again, but her mouth never moved. The sound came from somewhere behind her in the woods. Shapes shifted between the trees, tall shapes, watching the cabin. Then the woman raised one arm slowly and pointed directly toward me through the window. The scratching became violent instantly. Something sprinted around the cabin outside at impossible speed. I heard footsteps on the roof. Heavy footsteps. Then another scream erupted directly above me. I grabbed my shotgun and hid in the bathroom until morning. At sunrise, the snow outside was untouched. No footprints, no tracks, nothing. Except for deep claw marks carved across every wall of the cabin, and one sentence scratched into the front door. We saw you watching. I quit the job that same day. Nobody in Black Hollow tried convincing me to stay. The missing hiker on the Appalachian Trail. 4 of us hiked a remote stretch of the Appalachian Trail in eastern Tennessee during the fall of 2019. Locals warned us repeatedly not to leave the marked paths after dark. We ignored them. On the second night, we built a fire near an abandoned ranger station deep in the mountains. Everything was normal until Noah disappeared. 1 second, he was sitting beside the fire laughing. The next second, he was gone. No scream, no footsteps, nothing. At first, we thought he was joking around. Then Tyler found Noah's flashlight lying in the dirt, still turned on, pointing toward the woods. We spent hours yelling his name into the darkness. Finally, sometime after midnight, we heard whistling deep in the forest. 3 short whistles. Then Noah's voice called out faintly, "Help." Relief hit us instantly. We followed the sound downhill through woods, but no matter how far we walked, Noah's voice never sounded any closer. Guys, help me. Then another voice called out. Then another. Different people. Men, women, children, all whispering from different directions in the dark woods around us. Tyler stopped walking. Turn off your lights. We did, and that's when we saw them. Pale figures standing silently between the trees. Dozens of them, too still to be human, watching us. One of them smiled. Then all the voices began laughing at once. We ran uphill toward camp, while the laughter echoed through the mountains around us. When we reached camp, Noah was sitting beside the fire, perfectly calm. Relief flooded through me until Tyler whispered, "Don't go near him." Something was wrong with Noah. Not physically, just wrong, like someone pretending to be him. He smiled too slowly. "Left me," he said softly. Then he stood up and kept standing, too tall, his arms stretched lower than normal, nearly reaching his knees. The woods around camp suddenly filled with movement. Those pale figures stepped from between the trees into the firelight, watching us silently. Noah smiled wider. "Why did you stop following us?" Us. That single word broke us. We ran into the mountains and never went back for our gear. Search teams later looked for Noah for weeks. They never found him, but rangers discovered our abandoned campsite, surrounded by hundreds of barefoot footprints, all circling the fire. The tall man beyond the trees. When I was 13, my family lived in a small house surrounded by dense woods in rural Oregon. Every night my dog refused to go near the tree line. Then one evening I found out why. It started with knocking. 3 slow knocks coming from outside my bedroom window. I looked outside, expecting to see one of my friends. Instead, I saw a figure standing among the trees. At first, I thought it was a tree trunk. Then it moved. The thing stepped forward into the moonlight. It was impossibly tall, at least 8 feet. Its arms hung unnaturally long at its sides, almost touching the ground. It looked painfully thin, like stretched skin wrapped over bones, and it had no visible face, just darkness where features should have been. My dog began growling low in his throat. The figure stood motionless for nearly a minute. Then it took one step closer to the house. Knock, knock, knock. This time from downstairs. I ran to wake my parents. By the time we returned, the figure was gone. My father searched outside with a flashlight, but found nothing. The next night the knocking returned, only now it came from the back door. My dad opened it immediately. No one there, but deep footprints led from the porch toward the woods. The footprints were too far apart to belong to a normal person. For the next week, we saw the figure almost every night, standing between the trees, watching the house. Always silent, always motionless. Then came the storm. Rain hammered the roof while thunder shut the windows. At dog started barking wildly at the woods. Lightning flashed, and for 1 second I saw the tall figure standing directly beside the swing set in our backyard, closer than ever before. Another flash. It was now standing beside the house. Then came slow footsteps on the porch. Heavy footsteps. My parents grabbed flashlights while I hid upstairs. The front door rattled violently, then stopped. Silence filled the house. Suddenly the power flickered back on for half a second, long enough for me to see a shadow stretching across the upstairs hallway wall. Far too tall for the ceiling. The lights died again. Then from outside my bedroom door came a whisper. "I know you're awake." My dog began screaming downstairs. Not barking, screaming. The doorknob slowly started turning. Then lightning struck nearby, and every light in the house exploded back on at once. The hallway was empty. The front door downstairs stood wide open, and outside, at the edge of the woods, the tall figure was standing perfectly still, watching the house. Thank you for listening.